Tom Cruise enters a luxurious restaurant in the heart of the city, dressed in simple, slightly wrinkled clothes, as if he had just returned from an ordinary day. He chooses an inconspicuous table, trying to remain unrecognized while the glow of crystal chandeliers fills the space around him. But before he can place his order, a waitress approaches him with an expression of contempt and an arrogant posture. "Are you sure you can afford this?" she asks sharply, with a tone of irony in her voice, loud enough for other diners to hear her words. What happens next not only stuns everyone in the restaurant but reveals a truth that changes everything. Before we continue this story, write in the comments where you're watching us from. If you enjoy stories like these, subscribe to our channel, as tomorrow at 12:30 we'll have another special story prepared for you. Restaurant Spago was a symbol of elegance in Beverly Hills. Located on one of the most prestigious avenues in the city, it had large windows through which you could see streets illuminated by luxurious neon signs and slowly moving sports cars. Inside, every detail was carefully designed to impress. Spago wasn't just a restaurant. It was a place where people came to be seen and admired. Emma, one of the restaurant's most experienced waitresses, moved confidently through the hall, displaying a polished smile. Her impeccably gathered hair and elegant uniform emphasized her image of professionalism and control. Working here wasn't just a job, it was a privilege. At least, that's what Emma thought. Being a waitress in one of Beverly Hills' most prestigious establishments was something she prided herself on at every opportunity. But she had another side, excessive pride that sometimes crossed into arrogance. She had a special talent for quickly evaluating guests, instantly classifying them by their clothes, manners, and appearance. Some people just don't belong here, she often thought. The glass doors of the restaurant smoothly opened, and a man entered. He was wearing worn jeans, a simple shirt, and a jacket that looked comfortable but showed no signs of brand luxury. His presence was restrained, almost imperceptible, as he calmly approached the reception desk. Tom Cruise wasn't someone who liked to flaunt his wealth, despite being one of Hollywood's most famous stars. His modesty sharply contrasted with the glitz and pretentiousness of Beverly Hills. At this moment, he seemed like just an ordinary customer. Emma was busy at reception, discussing VIP reservations with a colleague. Noticing Tom, she abruptly stopped talking. Her gaze narrowed as she assessed his appearance with barely hidden contempt. He didn't look at all like Spago's usual clients. Not hiding her reaction, she slightly tilted her head and slowly looked him up and down, lingering on his worn shoes. "Good evening," she said dryly, forcing herself to smile, which instantly disappeared. "How can I help you?" "I'd like to reserve a table, please," Tom replied politely and calmly. Emma raised an eyebrow as if she had heard something absurd. Her facial expression seemed to ask, "How dare he?" She crossed her arms, and her smile completely disappeared. "Are you sure you've come to the right address? This is a very exclusive restaurant." Tom continued smiling, not losing his composure. "Yes, this is exactly the place," he calmly replied. Emma laughed shortly in disbelief, shaking her head. "Okay, wait a minute, I need to check something." She quickly returned to reception, not even trying to remain polite. Opening the reservation system, she demonstratively entered his name. When nothing appeared, she rolled her eyes and, irritated, returned to the hall. "As I suspected, you don't have a reservation," she said, her voice saturated with sarcasm. "We have a few free tables, but just so you know, this isn't a place for casual visitors." Tom's face remained unchanged, staying impassive, which irritated her even more. "I'd still like to dine here," he replied in the same calm tone. Emma theatrically sighed and sharply grabbed a menu. "Fine, but I'll have to seat you in an appropriate area. Follow me." She quickly walked through the hall, not even looking if he was following her. Instead of choosing a table in the center, where the golden light of chandeliers emphasized the elegance of the interior, she led him to the most remote and darkest corner of the restaurant. It was a table near the kitchen, where the sound of dishwashing and muffled staff conversations created an entirely different atmosphere, far from the sophistication of the main hall. "Here, this table will suit you," she said, carelessly tossing the menu on the table. "I think you'll be comfortable here, it's a more private place." Tom looked at the table, then at Emma, his slight smile remaining unchanged. "Thank you, I'm sure this will be an interesting experience," he calmly replied. She crossed her arms over her chest and narrowed her eyes, as if trying to understand whether he was joking or simply didn't recognize the situation. "Please," she replied, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Just so you know, these tables are usually reserved for special occasions, but since tonight is a free evening, you can sit here." Turning sharply on her heels, she left, not giving him a chance to respond. When Emma returned to the table to take his order, her behavior became even harsher. She theatrically opened her notepad and coldly looked at Tom. "Have you decided what you'll order?" she asked, not even trying to hide the boredom in her voice. "Or perhaps you need my recommendation?" Tom looked at the menu and calmly pointed to one of the most expensive dishes. "I'd like to try this." Emma barely contained her laughter, covering her mouth with her hand, as if trying to hide a mocking comment. "Oh, of course, Rossini filet," she said in a condescending tone. "A classic dish. Let me just clarify, sir, you do realize it costs $350, right?" Tom nodded, not changing his calm expression. "Yes, sounds wonderful." Emma tilted her head, her lips twisted into a malicious smile. "All right. Just to avoid misunderstandings later, I recommend checking the prices again. We don't want anyone to have unpleasant surprises." Tom remained impassive, which seemed to irritate her even more. "I'm sure," he calmly replied. Emma sighed loudly, as if doing him a huge favor, and wrote down the order. "Fine, as you wish. But I warn you, our chef prefers such dishes to be tasted by those who truly understand fine cuisine. I hope it meets your expectations." She turned sharply, but before leaving, stopped and turned back. "Oh, and one more thing. The minimum tip here is 20%. So keep that in mind while you enjoy your dinner." While waiting, Tom seemed completely unfazed by the discomfort Emma was trying to create. He calmly surveyed the hall, admiring the decor and the pianist's performance. When the appetizer was brought, Emma placed the plate so roughly that it slid slightly across the table. "Here's your appetizer. I hope you enjoy it, or at least know what you're eating," she said with a mocking smile. Tom thanked her politely. "Thank you." Emma leaned closer, as if trying to provoke a reaction from him. "You know, many guests who order this dish end up disappointed. It's not exactly for the general taste. But I think you'll manage. Good luck." Tom looked at her with the same impassive expression. "It looks wonderful. Thank you for your attention." Frustrated that she couldn't get to him, Emma quickly walked away, muttering something to a colleague. "He won't even make it to the main course. As soon as he sees the bill, he'll run." Meanwhile, Tom calmly enjoyed his appetizer. From the opposite end of the hall, Emma watched him, arms crossed. A malicious smile played on her face when she noticed he looked relaxed. "I can bet he'll ask for regular water." "They always do," she said to another waiter, who awkwardly ignored her comment. However, an elderly client at a nearby table continued to observe. He raised his wine glass and silently toasted toward Tom, who responded with a slight nod and smile. The dinner was just beginning, but Emma's growing contempt wouldn't go unnoticed for long. After taking Tom's order, Emma decided to teach the client, whom she thought shouldn't be there, a lesson. Instead of immediately passing the order to the kitchen, she deliberately gave preference to guests she considered more important. She stopped to chat with an elegant couple in the center of the hall, laughed loudly at another guest's joke, even brought a cocktail to a table she wasn't serving. Meanwhile, time passed, and Tom continued to wait patiently. To irritate him further, Emma passed by his table several times, pretending to be busy. Each time he looked in her direction, she turned away and quickened her pace, as if she were too busy to serve him. After a long wait, one of the guests who had been observing Emma's behavior approached Tom. He was an elderly man with neatly combed white hair, dressed in a dark blue suit. He approached with a friendly smile. "Good evening, young man. I hope I'm not interrupting, but I noticed you're being ignored," he said politely but confidently. Tom calmly smiled back. "Good evening, don't worry, everything's fine." The elderly man laughed softly and leaned closer, speaking more quietly. "You know, sometimes such treatment is a test of patience. But I can say with certainty that staying calm is a sign of strength." Before Tom could answer, Emma suddenly appeared and interrupted the conversation. "Sir, can I help you with something?" she addressed the elderly man in a voice that sounded polite but with a note of superiority. The elderly man narrowed his eyes but remained calm. "Don't worry, miss, I was just greeting this gentleman. It's rare to meet someone so composed." When she finally brought the dish, she placed it on Tom's table with a sharp movement. "Here's your order, I hope you'll enjoy it," she said, her tone full of irony. "And if you don't like it, please let us know, we can always offer something more affordable." Tom thanked her in the same calm tone as before. "It looks wonderful, thank you." Emma, with a cynical smile, leaned a little closer and quietly, just enough for him to hear, said, "Are you sure? This is a very sophisticated dish. It might be difficult for someone who isn't used to it." "I'm sure," Tom replied calmly. "Thank you for your concern." Frustrated that she couldn't elicit any negative reaction from him, Emma quickly left. At the bar, Emma commented to her colleague, who tried to ignore her remarks, "He's pretending to be polite, but it's obvious he's uncomfortable," she said laughing, putting an empty glass on the counter. "I bet he doesn't even know what he's eating. It's always like this with such people. They come here to feel important, and then they end up looking ridiculous." Her colleague forced a smile, visibly uncomfortable. "Maybe he just wants to have dinner, Emma. Maybe we should treat him like any other customer." She looked at him in disbelief. "Like any other customer? Have you seen those shoes? He doesn't belong in this place, and if he can't handle it, he shouldn't have come in at all." Meanwhile, the couple observing the situation whispered to each other. "She's terrible," said the woman, shaking her head. "He's so polite, and she still tries to humiliate him." "I agree," hunched the man. "It's a disgrace. I think we should say something to the manager." Returning to his table, Tom calmly finished the main course. He looked around and noticed sympathetic glances from other diners. However, he didn't look upset. When Emma returned to collect the plate, her face was still full of contempt. "How was the dish? Did it meet your expectations?" she asked with a fake smile. Tom looked her straight in the eyes and replied, "It was excellent, thank you. Tell the chefs they did an impeccable job." She raised her eyebrows, surprised that she couldn't provoke any complaints or irritation. As she left, she muttered under her breath, but loud enough for everyone around to hear, "He's smiling now, but let's see if he'll be smiling when the bill comes." Sitting at the table, Tom calmly observed his surroundings, smiling slightly. His gaze revealed that the moment for action was approaching. Emma, increasingly frustrated by her inability to provoke Tom, decided to intensify her provocations. After bringing him his ordered coffee, she deliberately said loudly enough for several nearby tables to hear, "You know, it's hard to maintain standards when anybody thinks they can walk in." She said this to a colleague, glancing toward Tom. The colleague, noticeably uneasy, tried to change the subject, but Emma continued, "That's why we have a reservation policy. It helps us avoid situations like this." Several nearby diners began to pay attention, some furrowing their brows, others whispering among themselves. The couple who had been observing the situation earlier were outraged. The woman put her hand on her chest, murmuring, "This is terrible, she's trying to humiliate the man in front of everyone." An older man at another table took a sip of wine and observed the situation with an expression of disapproval. He muttered to himself, "This is too much." Tom, still sitting calmly at his table, surveyed the room without any hint of irritation. His calm appearance seemed even more unsettling to Emma, as she now felt the gazes of other guests directed at her. A well-dressed woman sitting 2 tables in front of Tom commented to her companion, "He must be somewhat important, to stay so calm, others would have left already." "Or maybe he's just stronger than she thinks," replied the man, casting a curious eye at Tom. Determined to provoke a reaction, Emma returned to Tom's table to ask if he needed anything else, but her approach was anything but professional. "I hope you're enjoying your experience," she said with an exaggeratedly sarcastic smile. "It's always interesting to have different people here, it adds a special mood to the atmosphere." Tom, looking her straight in the eyes, finally responded, his voice calm but significant. "Different? Can you explain what you mean?" Emma laughed briefly, trying to maintain her composure. "Oh, don't take it the wrong way, well, our clientele usually has a more traditional profile, it's rare to meet someone like you here." The room fell silent, and diners stopped their conversations, clearly paying attention to what was happening. Emma seemed to think she was in control of the situation, rejoicing in the attention received. Tom was silent for a few minutes, holding her gaze, his facial expression firm but devoid of anger. Finally, he said, "You're right, maybe I should behave differently." Emma blinked, confused, but before she could say anything, the restaurant manager appeared. The manager, a middle-aged man with impeccable posture and an authoritative appearance, surveyed the room and immediately noticed the tension. When his gaze fell on Tom, his expression changed dramatically, and he hurried to the table, completely ignoring Emma. "Mr. Cruz," exclaimed the manager, his tone full of respect. "I didn't know you were with us today, please tell me how I can help you." Emma's face paled, blood draining from her face, and she watched the events unfold. She looked at the manager, then at Tom, completely confused. Tom held the manager's gaze for a moment, then returned his attention to Emma. "Now," he said calmly but decisively, "let's talk about how we treat people." The silence in the room was deafening. All eyes were directed at Tom's table, everyone waiting to see what would happen next. The manager of Spago, a man with an impeccable appearance and authoritative manner, was clearly agitated, observing the situation. Ignoring Emma completely, the manager addressed Tom, bending slightly in a gesture of respect. "Mr. Cruz, I apologize. It's a great honor to have you here tonight. Please tell me how I can make your experience more pleasant," he said, his tone full of reverence. Emma, who until this moment thought she was in control of the situation, froze. Her mind instantly began working, trying to understand what was happening. Mr. Cruz? He knows him. What's going on here, thought Emma. Tom looked at the manager and smiled. "Thank you, but don't worry, I'm fine. I'd just like to have a short conversation with your staff, if that's not a problem." The manager's facial expression changed, he immediately became concerned, sensing something was wrong. "Of course, Mr. Reeves, whatever you need." He glanced at Emma, throwing her a sharp, reproachful look. Emma began to stutter, trying to regain control. "I didn't know, I thought," she stopped, realizing that each of her words only made the situation worse. Tom broke the silence, his voice calm but heavy with meaning. "There's no need to state who I am to be treated with respect. In fact, it shouldn't matter. Everyone who walks through these doors, regardless of how they're dressed or where they're from, should be met with respect." The entire hall was silent. Many visitors whispered among themselves, surprised that Tom was one of the restaurant's owners. The couple who had been observing the situation looked satisfied, and the elderly man nodded approvingly. Other guests quietly whispered, A man sitting with his wife whispered, "I knew there was something about him. He has a special presence that's impossible not to notice." The woman nodded, "Look how he controls it, such grace. I hope she learns something from this." The manager turned to Emma, his face a combination of disappointment and restraint. "Emma, I expect a detailed explanation of your behavior after your shift. In the meantime, please leave this table and stay away. I'll take over from you." Emma opened her mouth to object, but the manager's determined look made her silent. With a sharp movement, she turned and hurried to open the doors, avoiding the gazes of visitors. Tom took a deep breath and stood up. He surveyed the room, noticing that all eyes were on him. In a calm tone, full of authority, he began to speak. This restaurant was founded with the idea of becoming a place where everyone can feel welcome, regardless of how they dress or where they come from. Unfortunately, that didn't happen today, but I believe we can learn from this. All the guests remained silent, listening to his words. The manager looked both excited and fascinated by how Tom was handling the situation. Tom turned to the manager and said, "I'd like to meet with the entire team after the hall closes. We have things to discuss." The manager immediately nodded. "It will be done, Mr. Cruz. Again, I apologize for everything." Tom returned to his seat, and the hall slowly began to return to normalcy, although visitors continued to whisper about what they had just witnessed. As the restaurant emptied, all the staff gathered in the hall, where Tom remained at the center, his presence impressing everyone. He looked at each person, his eyes radiating calm but also unwavering determination. "We all make mistakes," he began, his voice sounding firm and loud. "But what really matters is what we do after these mistakes." Everyone listened, absorbing his words. Tom addressed Emma, who sat in the back row, her eyes full of tears and shame. "Emma," he said, his tone soft but firm. "I know that what happened today was a mistake. And mistakes can be corrected if there's effort and desire to learn." Tom addressed the rest of the team. "In the world we live in, it's too easy to judge people by what we see on the surface, their clothes, their appearance, what they drive or where they live. But I want you to think, what will happen if you decide to treat someone with kindness? If you look beyond appearance and see the person?" Everyone was silent, absorbing his words. Some looked moved, others looked at the floor, reflecting on their actions. Emma, finally raising her head, wiped away tears. Her voice was quiet but full of regret. "I never thought about it that way," she confessed. "I was so focused on the restaurant's image, on maintaining standards, that I forgot what really matters. I forgot that every person has value, regardless of who they are or how they look. I promise, Mr. Cruz, I'll change." Tom nodded, giving her a small, reassuring smile. "This is a promise to yourself, Emma, not to me. Real change begins from within. And if you need help on this journey, I'll be there." She nodded energetically, her face reflecting a mixture of relief and determination. Kindness isn't about grand gestures, but the small choices we make every day. It's about treating each person we meet as if they matter, because they truly do. And that's what defines the character of a place and a person. Although, Mr. Cruz, your message was clear, we will work to make Spago reflect exactly what you envisioned. Thank you for reminding us of this." Tom simply nodded, offering a calm smile. As he left the restaurant, the streets of Beverly Hills glistened under the city lights. He paused for a moment on the sidewalk, staring at the entrance to Spago. His gentle smile returned as he began to reflect. What happened this evening wasn't just about a restaurant or an unfairly treated customer. It was about the importance of creating spaces where people feel seen, heard, and important. And Tom knew that even in the most difficult situations, there's an opportunity to inspire and change. Walking the illuminated streets, Tom thought not only about what he had said but about the message he hoped others would take from that night. If he could leave everyone who heard this story with one thought, it would be this. In a world where you can be anything, choose to be kind. True strength lies not in judgment but in acceptance. And, above all, remember, it is in the small choices we make every day that we shape not only the world around us but who we are as people. Thank you for joining me for this journey today. If you found value in this lesson, please consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear it. Until next time, choose wisely and live with purpose. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that inspire and teach. See you in the next video.